So joining us now is Lawrence McDonald. From 2004 through 2008, he served as vice president of distressed debt at Lehman Brothers. He is also the best-selling author of the book called A Colossal Failure of Common Sense, the inside story of the collapse of Lehman Brothers. And Mr. McDonald has also been having an advising role with the House Financial Services Committee, that is holding today's hearing. So, Larry, it's great to have you here with us today. Just curious for describe the role you've had with the Financial Services Committee, and also, from what I understand, the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission as well.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of answers, and a lot of the people that are asking the questions are not from Wall Street. They're reaching out to people on Wall Street, former executives like myself, and they're trying to dig into the inner workings of what actually happened with these subprimes.
Larry, could I ask you a question, because it was something that was broached a couple of weeks ago during a financial regulatory testimony on Capitol Hill. Is there a problem, perhaps, that folks are afraid to ask what could be perceived as the simple question? Does that get lost in all of this complex talk about CDOs and such?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of fastballs flying around, and I think a lot of these people in Washington are confused. They're confused about subprime. They're confused about CDOs, Repo 105, and they have questions. And I've just been trying to help them get to the bottom of some of these issues.
So, Larry, we've spoken a couple of times before, and you've always expressed concern about the Lehman board, and that should be among the first questions addressed at today's hearing. Why is that?
Well, the board, the board, and a lot of people, in my book, A Colossal Failure of Common Sense, I dug right into the board, and it's pretty clear that the board was out of touch with 21st century financial products. These are people from another era, and they were sitting on top of $700 billion of 21st century risk. So the question is, why was that board selected by Richard Fuld, and why didn't he pick a better board to sit over all this risk that affected us all?
Dick Fuld's performance obviously will be closely scrutinized. Any chance, Larry, that you might loathe him less after today?
I doubt it. I mean, he has been a punching bag, but the bottom line, he's never apologized to a lot of people that he's hurt. He's been pretty arrogant throughout any time of public scrutiny where he's actually been involved in returning phone calls. And a lot of people were hurt. We've lost 3 million jobs in this recession, and he really hasn't apologized.
Larry, what's the #1 question that lawmakers should be asking Dick Fuld today?
First, the board selection. Why did we had a Mr. Ainsley on the board for 22 years. We had an admiral in the Navy on the board, so focus on the board. And the other questions around Bart McDade, our former president, told the Examiner that he walked Richard Fuld through Repo 105 and this moving of assets off the balance sheet, but right before the big conference calls, right before the important times.
So does that mean that ignorance then is not a defense now?
It can't be, because you have a very sophisticated person on Wall Street saying that he walked Richard Fuld through it, and this is a very egregious move of moving financial assets off the balance sheet right before you're about to report financials. I mean,
how can, right? This is a really important question, Larry. Dick Fuld come out and say he had no idea about the Repo 105 accounting.
His excuses are really, I mean, it's like, the dog ate my lunch. I mean, one of them is he didn't know how to use his BlackBerry and open up files. Another excuse in the Examiner's report, he says that he didn't use a computer, and that other people used it for him. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
Aside from what's been going on for the past several days with Goldman, can we infer from today's testimony and from what's been going on with the SEC, we're going to see Mary Shapiro testifying also today, can we assume from this that the SEC is back on Lehman with a vengeance?
Well, in recent days, I've spoken to Lehman executives, and they have been questioned again by the SEC. So the SEC did some questioning maybe 6 months ago. Now they're coming back. The SEC is hot on Lehman's trail.
With regard to Mary Shapiro, the Lehman failure did not happen on her watch, as we all know. So what is the strategy behind Mary Shapiro's testimony here that we should expect today in terms of rebuilding the SEC's reputation?
Well, the biggest question is, why is Christopher Cox not here? I mean,
that's so important. Why is he not here?
You know what?
The former SEC chairman.
If you really look into this financial crisis, it's very clear that Hank Paulson was the quarterback, Tim Geithner was the wide receiver, and Chris Cox, I think, might have been out in left field because he really didn't have much of a role at all. And I think that Washington's not really proud of that, and he should be here today.
So, continuing with the football analogy, who was doing the audibles? Who was going against standard practices and norms?
Well, I think Hank Paulson was doing his own audibles with a little help from Mr. Bernanke.
So, bottom line here, do you expect charges, and on what grounds? Will they be civil, obviously, as the SEC is posed against Goldman Sachs, or will they actually be criminal charges against Lehman?
Well, there's definitely a whole cadre of civil litigation. I mean, you have the state of New Jersey Pension Authority that bought Lehman stock while Lehman was using Repo 105s. You have San Mateo County. You have a lot of these counties that were hurt by Lehman. Lehman raised $10 billion. $10 billion in the spring of 2008 while they were doing some of these things.
And Larry, in our last 30 seconds before we go to break, I think that's a good point to make out because, you know, people think of this in a Wall Street bubble, no pun intended, that only Wall Street got hurt, but municipalities are suffering as well because of this.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got a crisis in municipalities around the country, and we have to stop municipalities and pension funds from being Wall Street's punching bag.